Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here live at 5 Mondays. Welcome, and today, as usual, we're going to go through something completely new or something different, and then we're going to go into various topics, whether we want to think about it as the news or all kinds of other things, perspectives on things, and then we'll go into some jokes, some puns, the fun things. Have a little fun every day. So what are we going to go through? Let's go through something completely new. Now first, before I go into the main thing that is something completely new and different, because I've talked about this and you've heard about this, and I did a lot of study on this morning. I got to do it. And that is the tea or drink, because you don't necessarily have to have it hot. And I'm going to show you some pictures here. Let's show and tell a little bit, right? Oh, Gabrielle, thank you. This golden, almost reddish like, is a pine needle tea. So that is just chopping up the needles and then putting boiling hot water on it and letting it steep for about 15 to 20 minutes. So that's that. This morning I decided I was going to almost simmer it. Somebody, because I've started this gardening project just north of Orangeville. I didn't start it, but I started participating in it. It's new to this year, so if anybody is looking for a gardening project to spend some hours every week or every other week, it's a very fun group. But a lady there was talking about her pine tea, and she actually simmers or brews it overnight, similar to what I would do with shaga. Now, I just thought I'd do a little bit of an experiment this morning and see what it would look like if I actually simmered it, but not any boiling, and see how much darker it is. Now, you're going to see the camera here. It's actually a dark golden red. It's much darker. I'm actually going to try a few other things as well. Now here's the chaga tea compared to the simmering, and you can't notice the difference. You don't notice the difference, but this looks like stout beer, and this looks like whatever you want to talk, apple cider or some of those, but this is definitely much darker, and that's chaga. And one could mix these things, so that was kind of cool. And I have about 5 pages of notes here. I'm going to go through it quickly, but then I definitely want to get through the other something completely new. So let's see what I've come up with. Now, definitely identification. In some of the emails, they seem to think it was 3 or 2, but since I've been doing the harvesting of pine needles, it's definitely 5 needles that's coming out of the branch. That is white pine. A red pine, 2, 3, and the bark is definitely more barky, if that's a name, whereas the white pine, it's smoother, whereas the red bark, it wasn't. And you could see in the bark, you could see some redness in there. But definitely high in vitamin A and C, as they mentioned and will continue to mention. But the interesting thing is I'm probably just going to have to go top of mind here rather than look at all the pages. Again, I have about 6 pages here, 7. And one of the things that came up was the fact that it's 5 times more vitamin C per cup than an orange, or one person said a lemon. Maybe I'll just keep these here just so I can browse through them, see if there's anything that comes up. So I watched and read several things this morning, and definitely different ways of taking them. Definitely there was the idea that if you boiled it, that it would go to turpentine, and that could be harmful for you. One guy said he was sick for a week or 2. I watched his video and I do not understand, other than he got lake water, and that might have been the issue, but he did boil it for 15 minutes. So that was interesting there. Now, it does seem that chopping it is going to be better than putting it in whole, although some people just put it in whole, and it seemed like that's where they were simmering it in low boil, and that's where they kind of did that. So in essence, let me just see kind of what is. So the key thing is you want to be able to identify it for sure, and definitely versus things like hemlock and yew, you do not want to. So in some ways, I can give some information here, but at the end of the day, I think go do your homework. Do your research on it. So yeah, 5 times more vitamin C is an orange or a lemon. And do not consume if you're pregnant. So if you're trying to get pregnant, or if you're pregnant, do not consume. Just better not. There was a scenario or some studies, which I didn't go and look at myself, where animals were affected when they had it. I think maybe the abortions or something like that's harmful to the animals. So better not to chance it. So if you are, or you're wanting to be, better not to chance it that way. So the idea is when you chop it up, before you chop it up, there's a little brown at ends there that go into the branch. You can take that off. So that's your first cut. So chop those off of the pine needles. And really, you just don't want anything brown. Okay, so that's probably the easiest way to say it. You don't want anything brown. Be it if you have brown needles, which there are some, you pull them out as well. And then you're going to chop them. Some said a 1/4 inch, some said, okay, chop it in 3s, which is definitely more like an inch each. So you go by what you want. So the things you're going to need is obviously the needles. You're going to need a pot or a tea kettle or something, or boil water in something, and then you're going to have something to steep it in. Now that's how I'm going to actually say to start off with most people doing it, is to steep it instead of simmering it overnight or doing that. So steep it. So some sort of a strainer so that you don't get the pine needles within your drinks. You want some sort of a strainer. Some people were actually taking it out with a fork or something and then making sure you have all of it. Easier to see, but a strainer, or I had certain scenarios where I was just able to use my T-ball. It was kind of like a strainer in itself, and then a wooden spoon. You definitely want to probably stay away from things where you're heating the water or steeping it, like in aluminum. Stainless steel would probably be the best for sure. And then some mentioned steeping it in a glass. So that's that part. So let me just go quickly through here. I kind of made some other notes. Yes, so to get into the medicinal part, some people were definitely thinking it as if they, so let me just give you kind of a few things. The medicinal is, let's just say you have very low energy, exhausted. That's a good time to have it. Let's think of that, a little bit of medicinal. And bronchitis, anything respiratory, something like that, cold, fever, just feeling, that would be a good time to have it as well. And I think there was one other thing, if it comes into the documents, I'll do, but definitely in those cases, low energy, that's it, yeah, exhausted, just want to pick me up, and then the respiratory conditions or bronchitis. But I would say if you are feeling anything under the weather and you want to pick me up, this would be a good, these teas, even if it's in cedar tea, it could be white pine tea. There's other, apparently there's all these names of pines that I've never heard before, and ones not to have and ones to have. So that's good. And you know how it tastes, it's earthy. In some cases there's a sweetness there, and ever such a subtle tone of actually that you're eating, drinking pine, right? Something like that. Somebody mentioned something about if you have a pine tree as your Christmas tree. I mean, spruce, you can do this as well. Apparently the needles are softer, but as in you want to make sure they're soft and not too hard. But just to make sure, if you do it with something, the Christmas trees, to make sure that they're organic, that they weren't sprayed with anything. And again, you probably could soak them in vinegar and water or soap or vegetable soap to do that. So that was one thing. The pine needle tea kills parasites. That's what I was going to talk about. So if you're taking it and you're toxic perhaps, or let's say you have something in there, in that way, anything that has to do with cleansing or detoxing, you may have what they call, and parasites would be die-off, and when it's detoxifying, you may have some side effects of that because things are moving in your system. And some of those effects, it may be vomiting as much. I've worked with people who are doing the cleanse program, and because they were so acidic and toxic and liver congestion and stuff like that, they did have a bit of vomiting, but they understood what they were in for. and of course coaching them and being there for them is easy. But yeah, so fatigue, anything when you're going through things, sometimes, as we know, a fever is a good thing. Colds are detoxifying. So all these things does bring your energy down because it's going towards you actually cleansing, right? So your body only has so much energy. So let's just see quickly what else we have here as far as little things that I've made. So I think that's enough there. It was a good, I felt very good just kind of getting it into, oh, a little story. Yeah, so just kind of turning the pages over, a little story. So a little story about pine needle tea is when the sailors came over here and the natives, and they had scurvy, very low vitamin C, this is what the natives gave them. The natives gave them pine needle tea, and that's how they overcame scurvy that they were having. So definitely wanted to kind of share that story. So that's that. I mean, there's obviously more info there to share, but I want to get into the next thing, which is actually the thing about something new, is colostrum. Now, for those who aren't familiar with colostrum, let's say a mother, first milk for the infant baby is called colostrum. It's very rich, and in cases it's creamier. And if you don't know about breast milk changes. It's colostrum at first, and then it actually changes to what the baby's needs are. Wisdom and intelligence within our bodies. In the cows, the calf without colostrum will die within 5 days. So the colostrum coming from the cows, preferably A2 cows, but that particular is so rich, so building of their immune system. So at least the baby, our human infant babies, have some sort of an immune system based on the mother and what the mother has passed on to the baby in the womb. And then it goes on to support their immune system. In the cows, my understanding I'm just going to show you this book because I got to meet this doctor, and polypeptide immunotherapy, colostrum. So heavy book, not as heavy as the health and longevity book over there, but heavy book full of important information regarding peptides. So what's a peptide? A peptide is just really, and we've heard of proteins, right? And proteins are amino acids, and we've heard of the essential amino acids, and peptides are very short chain of amino acids. And at the end of the day, the colostrum is very, very, very rich in it. And it's so healthy. Like I posted, I'm not going to say too much about it, but I did absolutely post a post here on Facebook with information there. But there's so many things that rich milk, first milk, that actually helps people. And it's been shown in studies to help children who are autism, ADHD, think the brain, so supportive for the brain. Well, the immune system is everywhere in our body, so supportive for our immune system in general, but really good for all the other things. Because remember, I've taught you that inflammation is a component of every chronic condition. It's also acute inflammation, but all the conditions and diseases that we know are chronic inflammation. And really, at the end of the day, a system working as a whole, when you're in chronic inflammation, things like these peptides, things like colostrum, they support the whole body. So you won't be surprised to see cancer, diabetes, as a list of what colostrum will help with. Now, the thing about colostrum is, in having a very good conversation with this doctor, I think I was probably a good hour, so I was fortunate to have all this time with him. People were not interested in it as much. So it was great. And they got books, studied the book, and these simple peptides or amino acid chains can go everywhere in the body. They're very supportive. Again, they're the first milk for the infant or for the baby cow, as first milk is for a lot of mammals. It's very, very supportive. The key thing is quality. And you know I speak to this quite often because it does make a difference. Can't say it enough. Quality is so important, and the liquid is better. Now, if you can get, like from my raw milk guy, He has it, but he doesn't have it all the time. He doesn't have it all the time. So it's when you get it, you get it. When we think about, or I think about a supplementation for people, liquid is the better. And not only liquid, but liquid that's been flash pasteurized, because it is the rules and the laws that they have to pasteurize. But flash pasteurized very quickly has shown not to deteriorate these peptides, and that the benefits are still there. So a liquid, and that's not pasteurized fully as we think of with the heat for the length of time. So it's flash pasteurized. So that keeps away from the pasteurized, and also the powders as not being effective. Liquid is the best. Anything that comes in powders may maybe like some of the superfoods can be very good. But in this case, when we think of omegas, yep, raw seal oil, liquid, sublingual, awesome. Colostrum, yep, sublingual as well. Smaller pep chains, and helps with the immune system, which is the key thing that a lot of people are talking about. And it didn't come to my awareness, or I just didn't really, I mean, it's always been there, but it's just recently, as I was watching a video of a friend of mine, good friend of mine, who did one on peptides, and this doctor's working in Russia and stuff like that. I'm still exploring that, and we'll come and talk to it more. There seems like there's some synthetic and some natural as well in that. I have to understand it more. But in the meantime, this immune boosting colostrum. Now, the interesting thing is this particular product that I'm talking about actually has, they evolved the product and added zinc. And we understand and we hear about zinc. So liquid minerals, liquid colostrum, but spray it in, hold it in your mouth, and get the sublingual absorption. So it's like a little spray thing. So if you're interested in getting any, just let me know. And you may know people who would like to have it support this, immunity support. So things that I can say right off the bat: chaga, or chaga tea. Brew your own, much better. Get the chunk. Some are smaller, some are larger. The pine needle tea, absolutely. Doesn't have to be pine needle, could be cedar, but any of those nutritious coniferous trees where you can make tea. The raw seal oil, awesome for the brain, nervous system, anti-inflammatory, and then talking colostrum. So over time I may add some things, but it seems like it's coming together that way. And by all means, you would then get rid of, or lessen, or stop for a period of time to allow the body to immunity and detoxify, is the cleaner diet. Cleaner diet, or what I'm going to be talking about, especially because now we're in the warmer weather, is training people and guiding people on the 7-day raw food diet, which is just fruits and vegetables. So there's a lot of things raw. Eggs are raw. They have to come off for me, and it's just 7 days. But it's what you do with the food that will make it very interesting. And you get to learn a lot and make your own salad dressings. And as soon as you kind of skip into after the 7 days, it's easy to add nuts and seeds and a little bit of olive oil to make your salad dressings. Is so simple. So I look forward to doing that. But cleaning up your diet, getting rid of all the processed foods, right? The refined sugars, the refined oils for sure, and change your cooking a little bit. I talk about the slow cook, no cook, low cook, right? Low cook, and then the 5-finger philosophy. Raw foods, whole foods, local foods. So that's like fresh foods, though, that kind of idea. Now I am putting together a presentation that's going to involve much of this, a little bit more detail, but kind of rounding in the stages of disease as well. So then you have that, and a couple of other things, the stages to healing, a few things that kind of come in. I'm trying to actually see if it's going to be beneficial for people to actually go through some simple exercises, which is to self-diagnose. And I really want to do that. I actually might blend these together so that you can think for yourself, ask questions, and then not go on a a worry train, let's call it. You won't go on the worry train. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Oh, yeah, energy. Okay, low energy, but could be this. Still could be several things, but it's that part of education that I want to kind of put out there more and more. Yes, my book, you want to go through more detail, well, there you go. It's 450 pages. That's where you would go in that sense, study that. But this will be fun. This will not include in the book, but the self-diagnosis, where it only goes so far, of course, and what you can see and touch. But that's, that's important. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, is the something completely different is the colostrum. So let's skip into what's happening, what's kind of going on out there. What am I hearing, or what am I reading, what am I understanding, and perspectives. But at any rate, one of the things we have to understand is the mind. The mind is so important. One easy step is making your own salad dressing. All store-bought salad. Yeah, have canola oil. Yeah, or highly processed olive oil even, right? So these processed oils, if you see olive oil, doesn't mean it's the best thing in the end. They say, oh, it's got olive oil in it. It could be a very denatured, processed, refined olive oil. And this says cold pressed, but even then, there can be heat and there could be added vegetable oils too, as they do with product. But that's a whole other conversation. But it is so easy to make your own salad dressing. You're going to make it a whole lot better than what's all, they put sugars in it, they put all kinds of things in it to make it creamy, to make it so that you can avoid all of that. There are some decent ones out there that you can move towards too as well, but a lot of them put canola oil. And even if it is organic canola oil, it's still the conversation we have to have about the refined. So even if it's organic oils, it's the refining process that completely denatures these oils, even if they are organic. Now that's raised organic, and still be the canola oil, still a genetically modified crop, although there was something out there that was a talk about a certain strain that was in Europe that actually came to Canada, and it was the better one. So it's not necessarily genetic, but still have to search more information for that. But at the end of the day, what do we have going on? Now, some of the things that I mentioned is, well, very quickly, I just watched a short video which I put up about the audit and one of the states, and it was interesting. It was kind of like an update, but it seems like, from what I could gather, and interestingly enough, some of these keywords came out: secure. And how many people don't feel secure right now? They just don't feel secure, as in, they're fearful of the virus. Transparent. Well, it's clear there's not a lot of transparency from certain parties, let's not name them, for the information that you can get right off of the websites like Health Canada. And that's not being in the news or in the press conferences. And the state-of-the-art technology. Now, I'm going into the audit. I'm not talking about that. It's not finished. But some of the things that kind of came up, state-of-the-art technology. And technology can be used for good, and it can also be used for bad. And that's the way it is for any topic. Church, financial, education system. What are some other ones? Yeah, anything you can think of. Capitalism, and it can be, if it's defined properly, but at the end of the day, it can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And so that's crazy in itself, where state-of-the-art technology can be very useful and perhaps in this scenario. But let me talk about something that's kind of coming into the surface here. I got a couple links here which I will put up, but one of the things that kind of came in, I'm just going to go over the titles here, is the fact that if you have gotten your VAX or VAC, then you may not be able to fly. Now, I'm not going to put that out there, but one of the things that's come up, I know I have it somewhere, yeah, so you got it because you want to travel. But in essence, one of the things about its potential and the clotting that is happening and truly happening to people, and then the toxicity levels that's happening because it's getting out of the area, the deltoid muscle. It's like a pathogen increasing its toxicity into the system. That's why the various side effects can be so different. When your body's poisoned, then that can happen, and the blood clots would be an effect from that. But in this case, in these two articles, and I didn't look up too much, but certainly at higher altitudes, you have more of a risk when it comes to complications with your circulatory system. It's no different. What goes above goes high. It is the same thing for scuba diving. So being a scuba diver, but haven't done much, but licensed, or yeah, got the license, but have to probably renew it. But at the end of the day, when you go down, if you have, the way that works as well is a lot of risk. So go up or go down, it's a lot of risk. And some people cannot ever dive for where their health is. And it is so much so with traveling too. You could, and have been always, may have the doctor say to you, I'm sorry, but you cannot travel. It is too risky. And so because of the potential side effects that are happening and probabilities, and some are, that you may not be able to travel. So what a kind of a conundrum is, in you get it to travel, but then yet you may not be able to travel. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. But yeah, so let me see what else there is here. That definitely one of the things that's come up in the past. So we're going to go on to the next thing here, and I'll post that one link about the traveling. Again, it's all about awareness. It's all about awareness. And the other thing was to talk about the pineal gland. Okay, the pineal gland, which is, directly here, which is why you would never, get the test, right? Right here, if you're going to get a test, you point to your wrist and get them to do your temperature right here, not right here. We haven't talked about this for a long time. So talking about the pineal gland, people are getting what they call calcified pineal gland. You can get calcification, a hardening, anywhere in your body. But this precious pineal gland is so important to our health. It's like a central flesh and molecules that have created this pineal gland that helps with regulating, helps with communicating, helps with so much in your body, so much. You can look it up, and it's very, very important. But some of the things that are being talked about or being passed around, again, I don't know if it's true, but I do understand a few things from other things, so I'm going to bring it together, is that in these other testing, the ones they go way up here, so if you can spit, do the spit test, do that. If you have to do a test, do the spit test. And this is, I think, what was used, or just in here in your mouth, but ideally the spit test would be better. Somehow it would be better. Another reason why I understand that there's the swabbing in the mouth, or there's a spit test, or there's the way up here test, is that the people who are part of the film, they have to get it every few days. So if they're getting a few times a week, then doing this would be too hard on their membranes that are in there, and so they were just swabbing in the mouth. But then the school, my daughter's in high school, they were sending kits home, and it was a spit test. This is when the province was doing it. I think it's more than 100 schools here in Toronto were doing some sort of a study, asymptomatic, so obviously the children, but parent people could do it as well. So very interesting. I never got to the bottom of it because Toronto Public Healthy didn't really have an answer for me. They didn't even know it was going on, the person I was speaking to. So when it comes to that, so we're thinking pineal gland. Why? Because with the high, far back nasal swab, is that people are finding and talking about certain particular fibers that are in there, never mind the preservatives that are used on the swabs, right? Preservatives, as they do, just like shelf stability, You want the swabs to be shelf stable. You want the masks to be shelf stable. So it's not, shouldn't be any surprise to people when you have certain things like masks that has EO, ethylene oxide on it. It's a preservative. They have to do that because if things get wet, moisture, all those kind of things, it's going to go moldy, and you do not want to be breathing in that. So at the end of the day, you're going to breathe in chemicals. And it's the same with clothing. So with these swabs, apparently they have these fibers in it, but within these fibers, a particular gel, which in this scenario is actually possibly acting like lithium to affect the pineal gland. Now let's talk about lithium for a minute. It is on the elemental table, and as all things on the element table, doesn't mean it's good for you, and doesn't mean you need them, but it's one of those elements, lithium, and this is what was used if you wanted, and I'm not going to remember the timing, but let's just say you didn't like your wife, and once upon a time, and it wasn't even a short 50 years ago, so crazy things actually had to get changed, but if you didn't like your wife, or you wanted to, whatever reason, you could put them in a sanitarium, give them a lithium, and what lithium would do is almost like a comatose, right? They couldn't speak, besides the lobotomy, but the lithium would do that. And this is what cannabis, I've learned, actually acts like lithium. So, numbing, get rid of the pain. But not good in your brain function. You can't drive when you're on cannabis. You can't drive when you're on alcohol. You can't function. And some have tried it once and go, that's it. They couldn't function for a whole day. And I've continued to hear stories about that. But if it helps with pain and that's your only desire is to deal with it that way, great. But I would tell anybody you have other options. And if you're willing, able, then there are other options. But the idea is that if you have a gel, and it truly does have something like a lithium in it, and it's going into your nasal passage, and it can pass the blood-brain barrier, which of course it does, because lithium, they give them internally ingested or whatever, and it has to pass the blood-brain barrier as other meds do, then it's going to be that. So this is something that, when we think about the things that are happening right now, wearing this, toxins and chemicals, creating more of something that is toxic to your body, getting those toxic for your body. So you got all this toxicity over and above your usual toxicity in the processed foods, in the air, in the water. And you can see how a stress would, this would be stressful on the body. Then if you're getting stressed on top of that, this is going to play on your ability to actually detoxify because you're in fight or flight mode. So the body is using the energy for that, not using the energy to digest, not using the energy, you just don't have that energy to use for digesting, assimilating, rebuilding, repairing, renewing, and all of that. The key is to definitely detoxify. That is so, so, so key. So I definitely want to talk about that. And so there's all those things that anything where there's poking and prodding and cutting and ripping and all of that stuff is going to be a huge a huge stress on the body, especially operations, especially surgery. Most people don't get to see it until after they go in it, but a number of times, I don't know the percentages off the top of my head, people have to go in for second injuries, second operation due to the first operation. And that's a thing. Some of that has to do with scarring and hardening and things like that. And that's to do with the stages of disease, which I'll talk more in the presentation. So I'm going to have to work really hard on getting that presentation done after I get on course and stuff. So the lovely doggies, they're saying hello, hello, hello. So that's really what I only wanted to talk about today. Ideally, there's going to be continued information coming out about what to do. But the idea really is vitamin C. We're having a 101 Dalmatians thing going on in the neighborhood here. We have so many dogs in the neighborhood. So one starts barking, the others start barking, and then they pipe in and bark in. Sometimes you think you can hear about 12 different dogs. But Fun, fun, fun. Okay, Shadow. Anyway, that's what I really wanted to come on today. Definitely a person, Dr. Y, I'm just going to call him Yeadon, has some newer videos. And again, he's one of those people that's been in the trenches, been involved. And even he will talk to a number of things about the current injection. And I liken it to even looking past. So I know these people have always been pro, but the toxicity has always existed when it comes to. And the other point, and I'll put his video up here, the other part that he talks to is that it's only one part or a portion of the immune system when you get the injection. It's only one portion of how the antibodies aren't everything and anything. It's only one portion of the immunity. So Dr. Y talks to it like that, and there are two things that came out for me that would be relevant for all of the VAXs that have been in the past, so, or still exist today. What else? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get kicked off here, so there's enough things in here to talk about various things. You know, the whole variance thing, that was very interesting. So let me talk about that, because you're going to hear that. You're going to hear that. And I think I made four pages of notes with Dr. Y. And I can't do that for every article or every video or everything I'd like to research. So the idea here at Live at 5 is to bring at least a key component or a reminder, or kind of tie things in together and the puzzle. But let's talk about this variant. I'll say it in French, variance. Let's talk about that. And you might have heard this before, saying it's impossible, it's impossible, it's impossible. Anything's possible, but the idea is, when they kind of say what they say about it, is to dive deeper in it and to have a deeper understanding. And one of the things around this is the particular, if we think of the SARS 1 and 2. So 1 and 2, there's not, there wasn't, what was it, 80% similar, the 80% similar. What's happening today, potentially, I don't know how they're actually determining this, to tell you the truth, considering they said they don't actually have it isolated, is the 99.9% the same than the original. Maybe this information is present somewhere, somehow, in some labs, some things, but it's not clear to me on, do they have it or don't they have it isolated? Not clear to me. I'm still kind of determining what it is, but we know without question that if you support your health, you are going to feel better and you are going to be better prepared. The idea for people who pass, who die, who move on, that we celebrate, is that they are typically vulnerable. They're typically vulnerable, and they can even be vulnerable if they just recently have a lot of stress in their life. Typically if people are burning the midnight candle, they are susceptible to having something come up, just jump up. They've never been there before, but we can understand why. We can understand why. In some things, people have not been diagnosed. There's things brewing, but they have never been diagnosed. And maybe it's because they don't want to know. Maybe they just don't have time to think about it. Maybe the adrenaline from stress and stuff keeps them going, and all of a sudden it's like they're like a time bomb. So I think most things can be explained for sure. If I had more information and pieces of different things, could ask the right questions and could ask and deep further, for sure. So that's one of the things, I think, because we keep hearing that. And yeah, so basically what Dr. Y says is they are not telling the truth about these variants, and that they are because they want to continue injecting material into your body. Whatever's in that material, It's what's in that material. But we do know from documentation that has been shared, be it, I think it was Connecticut, that I poured through, that I had posted down below, SM102 on the health and safety data sheet. It was highly toxic, highly toxic. Never mind for the internal, but for the external, very toxic. So if you've not looked at the ingredients for some of these things, then oh my, you won't even be able to interpret it anyway. From a chemistry standpoint, it's this long name. You'd have to, as I would, have to ask the question, go research, and what is this, and what is this, and what is this? But it seems all foreign to me, which means they've put some molecules together. But at the end of the day, one of the things that they're using is monkey. Now, that's where the spike protein or protein amino chain is coming from. Monkey. That's where it is. Chimpanzee. It's not coming from a human. It's not coming from a lab that took it from a human or growing it or anything like that. No, it's coming from a chimpanzee. So at the end of the day, that's really typically how some things are done. It's something similar, as you can think of synthetic versus natural, artificial versus a natural. These things are produced synthetically, and they're different than the natural molecules. Like vitamin A, vitamin E, they all have their natural components and the structure, and then there's the synthetic structure in chemistry, and you can tell the difference. And there's even differences in organic arsenic and inorganic arsenic, even though organic is mostly what you're going to find, and then inorganic arsenic or inorganic mercury or inorganic fluoride, these are man-made things. They're on the element table, yes, but they can also be man-made in a lot of ways changed. I still call them fluoride, but they are a synthetic molecule. Okay, doggies are having fun. But let's go into a joke. I'm only going to have one, and we'll get to that. And then happy to answer any questions or take any comments. We have the puppy bark, and we have the big dog bark. Okay. I don't want to yell in your ear. Okay, so let's talk about some jokes here now. Some of them I've read, and some of them I haven't. Here you go, Bill. Okay, Shadow. Hey. Then I get always a little groan. I want to keep barking. Bill, did you know you can't send mail to Washington? Jill, no. Why? Because he's dead. But you can send mail to Lincoln. Jill, but he's dead too. Bill, I know, but he left his Gettysburg address. Now this is very old. This is the book, for anybody who's new, this is like 50 years old, and so some of these things you still hear today. The teacher, this is famous figures. The teacher called on little Joey. Tell me, what do you know about George Washington? Was he a soldier or a sailor? Well, I think he was a soldier, replied Joey. And why do you say that? Well, I saw a picture of him when he was crossing the Delaware, and any sailor knows enough not to stand up in a rowboat. All right, one more here. Benjamin Franklin may have discovered electricity, but the man who invented the meter made all the money. There you go. Oh, I'll do one more. Mike, did you know that Teddy Roosevelt was mean to horses? Ike, yes, he was a rough rider. Anyway, there you go. Sometimes I think you have to know a little bit about a little bit in order to comprehend sometimes what they're trying to say in this book. Generationally speaking, you would have to probably be there. So, it's good to see you, Gabriella. And everybody else who's watching, thank you for watching. And share. I'm not sharing to Facebook, but you pick up some of the information in here. Feel free to share it. And the more that we're aware, the more we're connected to what the possibilities are in our health and all of that, more the merrier. More the merrier. And that's all good. So here to help. And I will say adios for now, or arrivederci, or au revoir. and see you next time for Live at 5. So take care, everyone. Enjoy your evening, and we will see you again soon. Bye for now.